We now move into the first fireside chat for the day on the topic Cloud as a Catalyst in Democratizing India's Digital Economy Vision. Our speaker this morning is Dr. Saurabh Garg, CEO, UIDAI. A brief introduction. Dr. Garg is an IAS officer of the Odisha cadre and has worked as Joint Secretary in the Departments of Expenditure and Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Government of India, and as Secretary in the Departments of Agriculture, Industries and Urban Development at the Government of Odisha. Chairing this session is Sangeeta Gupta, Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer, NASSCOM. It's a pleasure to have both of you join us this morning. Over to you, Sangeeta.
Thank you so much, Justin, and welcome, Dr. Saurabh Garg. It's such an honor and pleasure to host this session with you today on cloud as a catalyst to democratize India's digital economy vision. I think we all recognize that the vision of a digital economy is built on the digital infrastructure. And it's heartening to see how digital infrastructure is now actually getting the same focus as physical infrastructure of road, highways would do in the past. And Aadhaar for all of us and for India is really the backbone of India's digital infrastructure and a public platform strategy. And it's today become a global benchmark on how digital innovation and inclusion can be done very, very differently from how one would assume it was done in the past. So I'm very excited that, Dr. Garg, you could spare the time and join us today. You also have a phenomenal background, right? Your journey from a PhD in international economics, MBA from an IIM Ahmedabad, so many other qualifications to building the digital payments vision, to digitizing agriculture in your posting in Odisha, now Special Secretary at MIT and heading UIDAI. I just want to ask you how you've seen the role of technology over these years and its impact for India. And now, as you are the CEO of UIDAI, how do you see this changing in the next few years?
First of all, thank you to NASSCOM for inviting me to this summit and to a topic, I think, which is extremely important and relevant as we move ahead in the next decade and more. The use of technology, as you mentioned, has really increased in the government over the past decade or two, and especially on the digital side. And I think one of the reasons for that is also because the way the digital enablement and the digital delivery changes how services reach the individuals and the residents in the country. So digitalization has really helped also to ensure that the death of distance, if I can put it that way, that in a way geography becomes history. So even if you are in a remote place, it doesn't matter, because through a smartphone, through a computer internet connection, you have the same access to information or the delivery of services as a person sitting in a city or in any of the tier 1, tier 2 cities. Apart from that, apart from transforming delivery of services, I think where technology has also helped is in terms of reducing the cost of services and the savings both to the government and the customers or the clients or the residents on the other side. So both have benefited by this reduction in the costs and the savings that have incurred. I can separately talk about the kind of savings that have happened on the direct benefit side. Going forward, I can only see more and more of services, products that can be delivered by the digital route to be done so. And in fact, perhaps the default method of delivery of services would be the digital method. And an in-person kind of delivery would then be restricted only to those things which cannot be delivered digitally, or as an exception because of certain reasons it cannot be done. So I'm sure excited about how technology would help. And I'm not restricting myself to only on the digital side. I think there are a number of other technologies which will continue to get used much more. And the closest one comes, I suppose, is the space-related ones, which will transform the GPS and location-based services.
No, I think that's a fascinating vision, that it's no more about distance, it's no more about the haves and the have-nots, which the earlier world wouldn't have really created, but it's really about creating a very level playing field, particularly, I think, from an India context, which has such a diverse geography and a diverse population and diverse income backgrounds. And I think clearly the Aadhaar infrastructure and the digital solutions that have been built on top of that have really helped reach the last mile, which I think is something we're truly unique and every Indian is definitely very, very proud of. But I just want to go back to your time in Orissa, and you've done the whole focus on digitizing agriculture, which I think is incredibly hard, right? Because it's again so disaggregated. It's not something that is as easy. It's not that Aadhaar is easy, but it's not centralized, right? Do you want to just talk about what did it take to digitalize agriculture in a state like Orissa, and what some of the learnings from there can be used as agriculture becomes the next bedrock for India too? I know there are lots of different initiatives, but we'd love to see what have been some of your learnings.
Yeah, so I suppose the one has to break down the different activities related to agriculture and look what can be digitalized and what can't be. And I think some of the things that we were able to implement was, for example, we have a lot of agricultural field level officials, staff agricultural workers, village agricultural workers, agricultural officers. And one of the issues that they often find is being how to ensure that the farmers get onboarded onto the different programs. So we developed an app which at the back end had the farmers' database preloaded. And whenever an agricultural worker went to a farmer and asked that farmer whether you would be interested in a particular program or scheme, and on the field, by taking the data off the farmer, just critical data, and it would pre-populate, and it would be the eligibility could be determined, and therefore it became so much easier for a farmer to get enrolled in a program or a scheme without having to go through a paper application. Similarly, weather is a very big determinant of agriculture, weather and pests and those kind of activities. So in order to ensure that farmers got information in advance, an IVRS system was built which sent out messages and voice recordings informing them about the weather expected over the next 24 hours, especially in terms of adverse weather impact, or for pest attacks, what action needs to be taken, so that it went out to a large number of people, and then they could disseminate it locally as may be required. Similarly, a lot of trainings that we otherwise required in-person requirement, we could send out nuggets to agricultural workers on a once-a-week basis, a video blast, informing them and improving their knowledge, and therefore increasing the outreach to farmers. So a host of activities could be done. And because of the fact that, number one, a large number of farmers are also on smartphones, but technology now exists that it can send out messages on the feature phones too. And also, more importantly, I would say the field staff could remain connected with what are the policies and programs that are being thought by the department. Otherwise, disseminating them across the hundreds of blocks and hundreds of panchayats there are, that itself took a lot of time. So I think in terms of transparency of implementation, in terms of the time lags that happen about knowledge and information, those are some things that can be totally done away with, or at least reduced considerably. And last but not the least is the ability to be able to ensure that the targeting is so much better, whether you want to distribute fertilizers or there is a shortage of any particular product, information goes in and then the supply chains can move faster given that. So I think the overall efficiencies and effectiveness of the programs really get enhanced once both the field staff and the farmers and the clients are on a similar platform.
That's very, very helpful, Dr. Garg. Since the focus of this event is really about cloud, love to hear your thoughts on what is Aadhaar's vision and how does that link with a cloud strategy? Does it work? Because you have many imperatives of accessibility, inclusion, reach. So love to get your perspectives on cloud and how is Aadhaar seeing the whole cloud movement?
So we are actively a very active participant in the cloud journey. In fact, our data centers, we are migrating them to our own on-premise private cloud. The private cloud seems a misnomer for a public body, but what I mean is that we are not, we have our cloud within our own premises, because we can't go into a public cloud given the kind of sensitivity of data that we have. Even a hybrid cloud is not a feasibility for us. So we've moved into our own private cloud, and the kind of features that this cloud has, we are a total open stack environment. We use open architecture, open source, open software, and that's what we are using even in our cloud environment. We are ensuring that we develop vertically scalable infrastructure so that it becomes so much more easier to add on servers or capacity as may be needed. And this also helps us to reduce our carbon footprint significantly. On the software side, we are containerizing all our core applications, so that would also optimize the infrastructure using. And we use the concept of the elastic data center so that the application of release of resources is based on the application usage and there's no human intervention involved. We are a 4.9 data center, data tier 3, which means an uptime of 99.99%, effectively, which translates into less than 12 minutes of unplanned downtime. No. So we are definitely gung-ho on the cloud infrastructure as we go along. And obviously, the cybersecurity risks have to be kept in view. For us, it becomes slightly easier because we are a private cloud. So we don't have, to that extent, the kind of concerns which a public cloud would have. But I'm sure each of the agencies are looking at what can be done to improve the cybersecurity in public clouds too. So given the scalability, given the flexibility, given the energy optimization and the efficiencies, I think it's a no-brainer for us.
I was just seeing some data. I'm not sure I got the numbers right, but you're talking about 6 crore authentications a day, right? So clearly
and in fact, it's more than 7 crore now. So
more than 7 crores.
On a month-to-month basis, I think the growth is expanding, and that just shows the level of penetration that different services which use Aadhaar, which ride on the digital rails of Aadhaar, is increasing. And I think within a year or so, we have increased from 4 to 5 crores a day to cross 7 crores. And on peak days, we have even crossed 8 crores a day. So that's the kind of authentication.
So what does this do to your whole private cloud strategy, right? How have how have you envisaged such a scalable infrastructure, right? Because the volumes, and you just want to build on top of it. It's not that this is the limit you want to get to.
Absolutely. So we are looking forward and on what is the kind of growth that would happen. And we are looking at what are the other areas where Aadhaar can be used. And our vision is to ensure that Aadhaar helps in the Prime Minister's call for ease of living of residents. Wow. So any activity which will help the day-to-day drudgery of an individual, which reduces that, we would like Aadhaar to be used. Obviously, subject to the consent and the privacy mechanism that's been very well laid out, both in the Act and the Supreme Court judgments. So we adhere to that closely. Given that, I think the uptake by residents is incredible, and in every area, people believe in the credibility of Aadhaar, and that's something which remains topmost for us. So this is something we keep planning and looking at what would be the future growth rates. And now that we are on a cloud infrastructure, it becomes so much more easier for us to scale up on a shorter time screen and to have the flexibility to move between applications so that depending on which application is more in use, we are able to provide the necessary infrastructure for that.
So just out of curiosity, how large is your technology team?
Reasonable. I won't say it's really large, but we have a good mix of people from different walks. We have people from different departments of the different sectors of the government. We have people from young and others, experienced people from who work with us through our agencies, and it's we have a data center in Bangalore, and we have a backup near Delhi. So in the two areas, it's a very limited number of people, but they're extremely experienced, and I'm proud of our team out there.
Yeah, I would say that if I had to compare it with a private platform, you would be potentially doing it with a much smaller team and doing it much better. So really,
I hope so.
no, I think we're all really proud of the technology infrastructure that Aadhaar has built. In a recent meeting with us, you talked about the whole Aadhaar 2.0, how you're thinking about what's next for Aadhaar. I'd love to get your thoughts about how you're seeing Aadhaar 2.0 play out, newer stuff like Aadhaar-enabled payment systems, and what and how is the technology getting configured, since these attendees have a lot of people from the technology cloud architect mindset. What can they take away from what is getting built for their road ahead? So
yeah. So Aadhaar 2.0 has a number of components. I won't really talk about how we are planning to improve resident centricity, how we are planning to enhance the usage of Aadhaar across different aspects, and how we are also working to see how other countries can use the Aadhaar architecture. But two areas I would especially like to talk about is on how we hope to improve our internal technology base that we have. I've spoken about the cloud aspects. We are developing a sandbox in Aadhaar so that anyone wants to test out a new use case, we can do a proof of concept and then work forward on it. Anything which helps in the ease of living is something that we would be happy to partner with. So that's one important area. We work with other agencies like the National Payments Corporation, NPCI, in building the AEPS, that's the Aadhaar-enabled payment systems, and the Aadhaar payment bridge, so which is the first one being the first mile transfer, and the AEPS being at the last mile, where people across the country are able to do a lot of the banking transactions using the mini ATM or the POS machine, which is available in every shop across the country. So the idea is to develop more of these applications, which broadly are part of the India stack. The e-sign, by which you can confirm your digital signature, and it helps build trust in any business transaction. So anything which will enhance this level of trust, which in a way then enhances the business and the GDP of the country, anything which increases the ease of living, is something that we are working on. And the other aspect, apart from the technology growth, is the focus on cybersecurity, on ensuring the confidentiality and privacy of the system. So cybersecurity is something which is always topmost for us. We have a multi-layered system of governance. We use a number of firewalls. We use security audits. We improve our processes and tools all the time. And in fact, we are working on having a bug bounty program.
Wow, okay.
So we did a hackathon last year, and we had excellent participation from institutions across the country, and a lot of new ideas that they gave us. And now we hope in the next few months to roll out the bug bounty program, where we are inviting ethical hackers to work with us to find out bugs in our systems and to enhance security. So security, cybersecurity, confidentiality, I think are the basis for the credibility. And that is something that we are constantly working on.
And how do you ensure you stay ahead of these hackers, right? Because they tend to think sometimes ahead of what many folks can.
I mean, I suppose you have to keep running to stay at the same place. So we work with a number of agencies who get intelligence inputs from across the world on what's happening, and we have a 24/7 security operations center where each aspect of our system is displayed and what kind of pings are being made on that, or what is the attempts being done. And we have to keep upgrading our both hardware and software to ensure that we remain insulated. But I think it's an area where one can never be overconfident, where one can never be complacent. And we keep our fingers crossed that we are doing everything that is. And that's why we have a multi-layered governance, which I mentioned, so that in case at any level something gets missed out, we have a second and a third level where that attention can be drawn to it.
I know we're running out of time, Dr. Garg. So my last question to you really would be, India is assuming the presidency of G20, and clearly India's whole digital public platform strategy with Aadhaar as the bedrock is something that a lot of countries may be interested to learn on. But just taking Aadhaar and how India has built it out, do you think other countries will find it easier to do it based on the learnings, or do you see Aadhaar getting global? What would be your vision around that?
So I think even in the G20, there is a vertical which is focusing on the digital economy. And I think through the India Stack, we've done a lot in the digital public goods.
Yes.
And a number, Aadhaar is there, UPI is there, eSign is there, DigiLocker is there, and a host of other applications and products are there. I think the kind of interest that there is in the Aadhaar architecture is amazing. I think every fortnight or so, we have inquiries, teams coming from different countries just to discuss on what we have done on the Aadhaar, both on the enrollment side in being able to enroll 100% of the adult residents and have a database of 135 crore residents who are in India. And also on the usage side, where we have reached, as I mentioned, 7 to 8 crores authentications a day. So on both sides, the learnings are immense. And also, I think what really underpins this is the fact that we are on open stack, open source architecture. So a combination of this is something that we are happy to share with other countries, happy to work with them and strengthen. And I think this would also help at a broader level develop a common understanding, if I can put it that way, across nations. So this is something we are looking forward to, and I think the G20 will only help us and take it forward.
So before I let you go, just the last question on, does something keep you awake at night on related to work? So
lots, cybersecurity, no doubt, that is something. But I think more importantly, looking at how Aadhaar can become a further enabler in making people's lives easy. That's something which really excites, which really enables a lot of the work that we do. And I think the way it is expanding, that we have 1,000 schemes and programs of the state and central government on Aadhaar, on the kind of support and enthusiasm that is seen across different sectors, in the startups, in the banking industry, in the financial sector. I think to be a part of this journey, I think that itself is so exciting and gratifying.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Garg. It was such an enlightening conversation as always. And like I said, we look forward to many more innovations from India that are truly India first, right? And at the size and scale which is hard to imagine and underpin, right? So thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and joining us here today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Garg and Sangeeta, for that very engaging discussion.